السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي هب لي من الصالحين صدق الله العظيم. Welcome to this very important parenting workshop on raising positive children. We would like to start off and thank the Jamia Online for hosting this workshop and arranging this very, very important workshop. This lockdown here in South Africa has changed many of the dynamics that we are living in. Most of us are with our children, and are going to spend a lot of time with our children. And this workshop, inshallah, is going to help us not only now but also to deal with our children in the future and to raise them in a very positive way. So we would like to welcome you to this very, very important workshop. If you have any queries, you could email jamiaonline1@gmail.com. That is JAMAIAHONLINE1@gmail.com for the workbook, because I would like this to be an interactive workshop, not about me just talking and speaking, but there are some activities that we need to do. So, inshallah, if you could email jamiaonline1@gmail.com for the workbook, will be great. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed many people with children, and children is a very important part of everybody's life. In fact, it is for some people, it is the main objective in their life, what gives them the greatest meaning in their life. And so, raising positive children and good children and salih children is something that all the Anbiya والسلام, or many of the Anbiya والسلام, also wanted and also desired. And you can see in the life of many of the Anbiya والسلام, they would make dua. For example, Ibrahim والسلام, would make dua for his for very pious offspring. Rabbi habli min as-salihin, that oh Allah, grant me very, very pious children, very, very pious and salih offspring, children that are good, that will be a benefit for society at large. And this is what I want to start off with, is making dua for our children. And why I'm saying that dua is the most important aspect, and praying for your children is the most important aspect in raising positive children. It is mentioned in a hadith to this effect, ad-du'a al-walid ala waladi, that the dua of a parent for the child goes directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many things has an intermediary, our amal has an intermediary, but the dua that a parent has and makes for the child goes directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And why this is so important is that there are so many variables when raising a child. The environment that the child is in, the household that the child is in, the friends that the child has, the school that the child goes to, the books that the child reads, the people that a child interacts with. So there are many, many variables that a child has, and that will shape a child. Also, the genes of the child, the physiology of a child impacts who that child becomes. So there's so many variables that it is only in the end the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will favor us with, that we can have and raise positive children. And inshallah, by us continuously making dua and imploring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us pious children, to grant us salih children, is very, very important. And it is actually the fundamental uh, building blocks of raising good children, raising pious children. And the second part to that is also now with regards to the psychology and the different techniques which a person can use in raising positive children. Inshallah, if we have the right psychology, we have the right temperament, we have the right outlook, uh, this increases the probability of raising positive children. Most of these techniques we can get from the life of our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We can get from the life of our pious elders. And what's very, very important in this terminology, which is called tarbiyah, which means to nurture a child, to nurture someone that is young. This is very, very important that we as parents need to be asking ourselves that am I making the correct tarbiyah of my child, of our children? And inshallah, with the tools and the techniques that we're going to use and that we're going to learn today, it will help us, inshallah, in making the tarbiyah of our children and inshallah nurturing them in a very loving way, in a very positive way, to become good Muslims, to become good human beings, to become good people, and so that they can become a benefit to society, so that they can also recognize their creator and also be pious servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also being positive to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have good akhlaq, to have good values. And it is also mentioned that the best thing which a person can teach their children is good character, so character building. So this is very, very important. So inshallah, if you bear with me today, and I'm hoping that we can have a very good session. Inshallah, this workshop will be over 3 days. It will be today, tomorrow, and on Wednesday. And inshallah, we'll try to complete this parenting workshop. As I mentioned, that if you require the workbook, you can request it at Jamia Online, or when you registered to receive the workbook, because this will be a very important part of this workshop. So let us start with a happy home equals a happy society. A happy home equals a happy society. And why this is so important is that we don't realize the importance of what transforms a person. And the environment is sometimes one of the greatest factors that transforms a person, that shapes a person. And the home which in which a child is growing up in is probably the most important factor, or one of the most important factors that is going to shape a child and who the child is going to be, or who the child is going to become. I once asked um, a doctor, and he's in the effort of Deen, that doc, how do you change someone? How do you motivate a person? What do you tell a person to motivate them to become better people? Uh, and for example, if a person wants to go out in the path of Allah, he's going to leave his family, he's going to leave his children, he's going to leave his business, and he's going to go in the path of Allah. How do you change a person? How do you motivate a person? What words do you tell a person? And so this doctor gave me a very beautiful answer. And he says that what we have to do is that you don't have to tell a person anything. You just have to change the environment. And so if you take this person and you take him out of his environment and you put him into the environment of a masjid, what's going to happen? The first thing what the person is going to do is that he probably will start reflecting on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He maybe will perform a few rakats of salah. He'll make some dhikr. He'll take out the Quran from the bookshelf and he'll start reading the Quran. The ta'lim will happen. And this, if you keep a person in this environment all the time, then inshallah, this person gets a sort of a self realization. The environment shapes the person. And so, if we use the same concept that if our homes are happy, if it is a happy home, the parents are happy, and I don't mean from a face value. Many homes they portray this sense of happiness. Yeah, with social media, we try to present our homes as and ourselves as role models, and we want to show this image to society. But here, what I'm talking of is a really a happy home from within. And sometimes, even the poorest of homes, they might not have wealth, but the parents are content, the parents are happy, they are well grounded in their emotions, they are good people, and they show this positivity and they are positive in life. Inshallah, this is going to create this happy home. And if children grow up in this happy home, which actually is viewed by how the parents are. So if the parents are happy, and inshallah the children will be happy. So if you see the mom is complaining all the time, the dad is complaining all the time, I've got this problems, the mom is always complaining. What happens is that this has an impact on the child. And if the parents are content, they're always speaking about the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're always saying and appreciating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it's on mealtime, very casually they say, we can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for this food that Allah ta'ala has provided for us. We can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for all the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And we continuously reinforce this happiness and this contentness and this appreciation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the appreciation to one another. The mother shows her appreciation to the husband shows his appreciation to the wife, shows the appreciation to even the domestic workers, the helpers, and thanking them. This is what is going to shape that child. And this is what's going to make those children happy. Thanking people, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, expressing this positiveness. The parents are positive, the parents are well grounded. This inshallah is going to rub off onto the children. So a happy home, happy individuals is thereafter going to equate to a happy society. And this is what we need. Many people, and excuse me for generalizing, there's wealth in the house, they have all the amenities of this world, everything is there, but people are still unhappy. There's still this void in their hearts, this emptiness that is there. And what's going to fill that void is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's going to fill this emptiness in a person's life is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reflecting on the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is going to fill that emptiness and the gap that is in a person's life. And inshallah, if we create the environment where we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this will underpin the happiness in the home. And it doesn't have to be from a very overt position. It could be every day, maybe in the morning, very loudly on the radio, playing Surah Yasin Sharif. In the evening, Surah Waqia, listening to some very good talks of our ulama, ta'aleem at home, and reading stories of our pious predecessors, reading stories of the Sahaba Ikram, of the seerah of our beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So creating this environment of deen in a very subtle way, this is inshallah going to shape the mind of our children, and inshallah this will make them happy. And you can always then teach them, life lessons, that sometimes things go, there are challenging moments in our life, but always telling the child that, no matter what happens, we always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can always go on to that musalla and cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with us, no matter what happens in our life. Inshallah, this will inshallah carry on through till when that child passes away, till when the child grows up and passes away. And inshallah, this will be a benefit not only in this world, but will also be a benefit for the child in the year after. So, looking at influence that we have on our children, and this is very, very important that we understand the age in which a child evolves. And when we understand the different ages in which a child evolves, it also necessitates the different ways we handle our children. So, what does this mean? Is that when a child is small, a child is a baby, then the parent has almost all control over that child. And the child is totally dependent on the parent. And as the child grows older, so till about 2 years, the child would be at one age. Then from about 3, the child now starts to learn, is able to communicate, is able to talk. So the child changes. And now the child reaches the age of 4 or 5, probably starts to go to nursery, to grade R. Thereafter, a child at the age of 6 and 7 goes to formal schooling. And then by the time the child reaches the age of 10, 11, again the child changes, becomes a teenager. So till the age of 15. And then once they 16, 17, 18, they start becoming their own individuals. And so the influence that we have, and this is very, very important, the influence that we have starts to wane as the child grows bigger. Our influence over our children starts to wane as the child grows bigger. So that is why that at the very formative years of a child, we should try to our level best to influence them. And I'm using the word influence, not force. There's a major difference between the two. So many parents try to force their children. And yes, there are times when we have to force our children. For example, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that when a child is now 6 and 7 years old, then we should encourage them to perform salah. And when they're 10 years old, then we should enforce that they perform their salah. So there are certain things that needs to be enforced. But the general trend is that we need to influence our children. And we need to make, and by doing so, we do so with tarbiyah. So every level that we're going to deal with our child, we need to change our strategy. So once a child is 6 years old, we change our strategy. When a child is 10 years old, we have to change our strategy. Once the child goes and becomes a teenager, again, we're going to have to change our strategy. And what happens here, you'll notice that many parents, alhamdulillah, we have many uh, we have a madrasa, and we've interacted with many parents in terms of assisting them and advising them with regards to their children. But we will notice a very common trend is that parents fail to realize that their children are now grown up. So what happens is that, especially once the child becomes 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, the child starts to develop their own character. And you sometimes see this parent still trying to baby that child, and still using the same strategy of how they would look after their child if the child was a 6-year-old child. And so this is very, very, very important that with your strategy, you need to change the approach in dealing with children from different ages and understanding that as they are growing bigger, your influence over them is starting to wane. The most important thing that we need to look